But my top focus today is a day on which Nitish Kumar created a slice of history, sworn in for a fourth consecutive time and for the seventh time in Chief Minister of Bihar. He has started his new innings as Bihar Chief Minister, but this time won't have Sushil Modi as his deputy. Instead, the BJP has gone in for a major overhaul in Bihar and has two new deputy chief ministers, including a woman, Renu Devi. The choice reflects the BJP's plans to look beyond its traditional upper caste vote bank. Our top story today is what now lies ahead of Bihar and indeed national politics as the BJP goes in for a change in guard.
Nitish Kumar is back as the Bihar Chief Minister, but his comrade and deputy for nearly 2 decades is out. The omission of Sushil Kumar Modi from the cabinet signals the BJP's plan to expand in Bihar. Sushil Modi enjoyed a close rapport with the CM, their camaraderie dating back to the JP movement. Many in the BJP see this proximity as a hindrance to party's growth in the state. The BJP, after dropping Modi, is inducting 2 deputy chief ministers. Katihar MLA Tariq Prasad and Betia MLA Renu Devi, who took oath on Monday, are likely to occupy the post. Both are known to be low-profile leaders, but it's the caste math that makes the choice politically crucial. Tariq comes from the Kalwar caste, which is part of the Vaishya community and is placed under the backward class category in Bihar. This category is electorally significant in the state. Tariq has a good grip on the Bania community in the Katihar and the rest of Seemanchal, which is a RJD stronghold. Renu Devi is another leader from the larger Bania community. A 4-time MLA from Betia, Renu comes from the Nonia caste, which is placed under the extremely backward class. The BJP, by making Renu Devi a deputy CM, would also be thanking women voters who seem to have rescued the NDA in these elections. Interestingly, women and the EBCs are Nitish Kumar's vote bank, which he developed over the last 15 years. The BJP, which has a solid base among upper castes, want to expand. With the Yadavs and Muslims firmly in the RJD corner, the party is eyeing other castes, including those who support its ally, the JDU. Bureau Report, India Today.
Now that's what happened in the BJP and with Nitish Kumar. But the real focus in a sense is on the Congress, because after yet another poll debacle, the knives are out in the Congress and the party is facing flack from among its own. Senior Congress leader Kapil Sibal has gone public with his criticism of the party leadership. An RJD leader has also directly attacked Rahul Gandhi, accusing him of picnicking in Shimla while the Bihar elections are on. What exactly is on in the Congress, and will anything really change in the grand old party? Take a look.
यहाँ चुनाव हो रहा है. राहुल गांधी जो है प्रियंका जी के साथ जाकर के मैंने शिमला में उनके घर पर पिकनिक मना रहे हैं.
The Gandhi family is rarely questioned so openly within the UPA. But with the debacle in Bihar, many are losing patience even within the party. In an interview to a news daily, Congress leader Kapil Sibal was blunt in stating that the party has been introspecting for past 6 years and has failed to emerge as an alternative to the BJP. He added that the Congress has the answers to its problems but is unwilling to recognize them. Many in the Congress seem to share Sibal's views.
We have to look at it needs serious analysis and it also needs serious action. I'm not denying that. I'm always saying that. I'm not the one who's saying that everything is honky-dory. Definitely we need to change, we need to communicate, we need to reach out. Our mass contact must become much more prevalent.
The Congress, meanwhile, is rallying behind Rahul Gandhi.
हो सकता है कि हमारे कैंपेन में कमी हो, हमारे चुनाव अभियान में कुछ कमी रह गई हो, ये सब हम मानते हैं. इसलिए हमने कहा है कि अभी चूंकि फेस्टिवल चल रहा था, तो फेस्टिवल के बाद हम लोग बिहार में बैठेंगे और बैठकर आपस में बातचीत करेंगे और जो भी कमी रही है आगे फिर उस कमी को दोहराया ना जाए, ये हमारी कोशिश रहेगी।
The murmurs in the UPA on Rahul Gandhi's leadership are music to the BJP.
राहुल जी, आपके लिए आज शिवानंद तिवारी जी ने बिल्कुल सही शब्दों का प्रयोग किया है कि आप पिकनिकिंग प्रेसिडेंट हैं। आप जिसका स्पर्श करते हैं उसका वजूद समाप्त हो जाता है।
India's oldest political party has been in a state of prolonged crisis. The Gandhi scion struggling to preserve and carry forward a legacy passed on to him through generations. Yet again, the election results have emboldened the rebellion growing in the rank and file of the party. And the longer the party high command chooses to look away, the more damaging it is going to be for the age-old Congress party. With video journalist Sanjeev Kapoor, this is Mosmi Singh in Delhi for India Today.
Let's raise our first big talking point tonight. Is the BJP versus Congress fight simply a no contest? Is the Congress incapable of taking on the BJP? Is a revolt brewing in the Congress? And who should be blamed for Congress's poor show? The Congress's national leadership or its state leadership in Bihar? Just some of the questions we'll raise today. I'm joined by Sudhanshu Trivedi of the BJP, its MP. I'm also joined by Pawan Kheda, the Congress's national spokesperson. Yogendra Yadav, President Swaraj India joins me, and Javed Ansari, senior journalist who's tracked the Congress for years, is also with us. Appreciate all of you joining us. Pawan Kheda, why don't you take the first question? Because the fact is that it is no longer people outside who are questioning the leadership of the Congress and Rahul Gandhi in particular. It's the RJD, your own ally in Bihar, within days of the defeat. Shivanand Tiwari says Rahul Gandhi is picnicking and not serious about politics. Where is it time now to face the elephant in the room, the lack of leadership and direction, the sense of drift in your party?
Rajdeep, what Shivanand Tiwari ji said has been responded to by his own party, and I think he should morally own up what he did, and he should resign. I mean, that's between him and his party leadership, but his party leadership has been very clear in distancing itself from Shivanand Tiwari's remarks.
But
so I don't think this merits a debate.
You can distance yourself, sir, from Shivanand Tiwari. How do you distance yourself from a Kapil Sibal who believes that your party has lost the connect with the people are rejecting the Congress, and the sense of drift continues?
Like Mr. Sibal, even you, Rajdeep, have watched the Congress, have understood the Congress for decades. It's not the first time Congress has been questioned from within. We have this, I would say, healthy tradition of questioning the party from within. But what is unhealthy is going public with it. And Mr. Sibal, with absolute respect for him, what was he doing when there were elections in Bihar? आप साहिल पर बैठकर सुकून, आपको मुबारक हो, तूफानों से हम लड़ने को तैयार बैठे हैं. You cannot sit on the sidelines and keep passing remarks and keep commenting on the leadership. What is Congress? It's Mr. Sibal, it's Pawan Kheda, it's Rahul Gandhi. Each one of us is Congress party. Why should Rahul Gandhi or the leadership be blamed for every single debacle of the Congress party? I refuse to buy this. I refuse to understand this.
No, who is accountable? Let's be clear. Someone has to be held accountable. Who is to be held accountable if it is defeat after defeat? This is not as if this is an aberration. What happened last week is not seen as an aberration.
2 years ago, Congress wins Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh. And political pundits, I'm not saying you, but political pundits come and say, oh, this has got nothing to do with Rahul Gandhi. It's Mr. Gehlot in Rajasthan. It's Mr. Bhupesh Baghel and Mr. Singhdev in Chhattisgarh. And Kamal Nath and Jyotiraditya Scindia in Madhya Pradesh. जब जीत जाएंगे तो राहुल गांधी भूल जाएंगे, हार गए तो राहुल गांधी याद आ जाएंगे. क्यों साहब? Is this fair? I ask you. Let me ask you, who's responsible for the debacle of the Congress party in Chandni Chowk constituency, which was ably represented by Mr. Sibal for 10 years. He was a minister. I'm sure he took absolutely great care of the organization within Chandni Chowk, and I'm being very emotional when I say this. I hate saying it, but I have to say it. आज चांदनी चौक में आप कितनी बार गए इस इलेक्शन में? आपने वहां वर्कर्स से कितना एंगेज किया, आपने कितना उस पार्टी को, कांग्रेस पार्टी को जिसने आपको मंत्री बनाया, कितना जिंदा रखा आपने चांदनी चौक में। मैं उनसे हाथ जोड़कर बड़े अदब से पूछता हूं सिब्बल साहब से कि आपने चांदनी चौक में कांग्रेस को जिंदा रखने के लिए क्या किया? वेरी इजी कि अरे साहब बिहार में बाहर से लोगों को भेज दिया। अरे जो काम कर रहा है, कोविड के बीच में जाकर वहां काम कर रहा है, एक एक महीना अपने घर परिवार से दूर बैठकर काम कर रहा है, उन पर टिप्पणी करना बड़ा आसान है।
No,
very easy to blame Rahul Gandhi.
No, you can, Pawan Khera, you can get emotional. The fact is, you have a party at the moment, sir, you have a party at the moment with an interim president who is too ill to travel and campaign. You have Rahul Gandhi who is in politics and yet out of it. He wants the power of being sort of de facto president of the Congress, but doesn't have the responsibility. You have Priyanka Gandhi, General Secretary of charge of UP, but doesn't go to UP when the by-elections are held. You lose deposits in 4 out of the 6 seats. You lose all 8 seats in Gujarat. You lose in Karnataka. You lose in Madhya Pradesh. Who's going to take responsibility?
Okay. Mr. Rajdeep Sardesai, I take strong objection. I have an absolute strong objection to the fact, to the comment that you made, that Rahul Gandhi is half in politics, half not in politics. I'm sorry. For some of you and for some of our own party colleagues, senior colleagues, the battle is just electoral. For Rahul Gandhi and a lot of us standing with him, the battle is far more than electoral. It is ideological, and that's the only man fighting the ideological battle in absolutely with gusto, with bravery, with courage. Despite all the odds being against him, he is the one very openly, bravely, courageously fighting the ideological battle. History will remember him. He will go down in history as one man who fought alone. Okay. A lot of his own party colleagues deserted him, but he didn't run away from the battleground.
I'll come back to Rahul Gandhi.
चुनाव महत्वपूर्ण होगा, हमारे लिए विचारधारा बहुत ज्यादा महत्वपूर्ण है, चुनाव से कहीं ज्यादा महत्वपूर्ण.
Okay, you're getting emotional, so I'll come back to you on
I'm not.
No, you are. You yourself said. You yourself said.
Rajdeep, passion is an emotion. And if passion is an emotion, yes, I am passionate about what I am defending. And why am I passionate about what I am defending? Because I draw pride in the fact that Rahul Gandhi is ably defending the ideology. India will remember Rahul Gandhi and his people for having fought and defended this ideology, the soul of India.
Okay. I'll come back to you, Mr. Khera, but Sudhanshu Trivedi, respond to what you're hearing. I know that, this is at the end of the day an internal Congress issue. The fact that Mr. Sibbal is criticizing the Congress leadership. On the other side, you have the BJP, which clearly now wants to expand into Bihar, Bengal, become more and more aggressive and expansionist. But do you also accept that your primary challenge still remains the Congress, or do you believe that the Congress is in a no contest? I want a clear answer. Is Rahul Gandhi for you the perfect opponent? Because it allows Mr. Modi to play the Kamdar versus Namdar politics.
If you look at it, Rajdeep, Congress should have been the prime opponent, but I think they themselves leave the space which they should have been occupying as a principal opposition party. I just want to say one more thing. During my childhood, I remember when Rajiv Gandhi was having 4,100 majority. It was beyond our imagination to think that Congress at one point of time will not be able to get 50 seats. This happened in 2014, but still what was the introspection? Though it is a purely internal matter, they should think. Then again, just above 50, then what was the introspection? Despite the fact that the last 2019 election happened in the backdrop of 3 major states they won. But one thing, you have said that Rahul Gandhi ji is half in and half out. That's what. He resigned as party president. Still he is the most active, whether it is on Twitter or going in the rallies. Where were the leader of the opposition of both the houses? Where was the deputy leader of the opposition of both the houses? I can understand the health consideration of Sonia ji, no problem. But where were the other chief ministers? Were they campaigned in Bihar like they campaigned for us? And as far as commitment for ideology is concerned, with due respect to my friend Mr. Kheda, I would like to ask, what is the ideology of Congress when you are having a coalition with CPI ML on one side, which says that the power comes from the barrel of gun, and then Shiv Sena on the other side, जो आज भी कहते थे कि बाबरी मस्जिद तथाकथित गिराने में हमें गर्व का अनुभव है, एंड द इंडियन यूनियन मुस्लिम लीग ऑन द अदर साइड, जो कि हिंदुस्तान के टुकड़े करने के लिए करते थे. तो व्हाट इज द आइडियोलॉजी? आई एम अनेबल टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस आइडियोलॉजी नैरेटिव.
Let Pawan Khera respond and then I'll widen it.
Organization electoral. There is a challenge on every aspect for the Congress party.
Okay. Yes, Pawan Khera, respond.
Rajdeep, I didn't think up till now that I'll need to define what is centrism for my friend Sudhanshu Trivedi, who is a very erudite fellow. Centrism क्या होता है सुधांशु जी? कि एक्सट्रीम लेफ्ट और एक्सट्रीम राइट के बीच का जो रास्ता होता है उसको सेंट्रिज्म कहते हैं. हम उन दोनों को डाइल्यूट करके, दोनों से जो अच्छा है वो बोरो करके, तब सेंट्रिज्म का जन्म होता है. दिस इज द कांग्रेस आइडियोलॉजी. वी डाइल्यूट द एक्सट्रीम लेफ्ट एंड एक्सट्रीम राइट, and that's what centrism is all about.
No, but when you have the Shiv Sena on one side and the CPI ML on other, isn't there a dilution? Isn't there a dilution somewhere?
May I be allowed to complete my sentence?
Please do.
Rajdeep?
Please do.
So when we bring the CPI ML and Shiv Sena together on our platform, effectively we are trying to expand the centrist base and diluting the extremities of both these ideologies. I mean, this is something as basic as the last 70 years of post-independence ideology of the Congress. We've all seen how beautifully it has managed centrism.
Sir, but the fact is maybe that ideology needs reinvention, redefinition. I'll come back to you now, Pawan Khera.
That's fair.
You know,
I absolutely accept this.
India which
I absolutely accept this.
Kapil Sibal said today, and I think that point is well taken, that maybe...
Sibal साहब ने ideology पे ज़्यादा नहीं बोला है, माफ कीजिएगा.
No, he believes your party is at one level disconnected from perhaps the new India, the new energies of a new India. You need to...
If you give me 30 more seconds, yes. I would request you to give me 30 more seconds.
Yes,
every decade and a half, Congress has reinvented. Right from the beginning of the history of the Congress party, every 10, 15 years, we have reinvented.
You have been in steady decline since the mid-1980s. That's the reality.
You don't let me finish my sentence. That's also a reality.
Go ahead.
The same Congress party which nationalized banks, abolished privy purses, is also the party which brought liberalization in the 90s. So much in tune the Congress party has always been with the changing times. It takes time sometimes, because it's a huge party, it's an ancient party, it has its own muscle memory, if you may.
Okay.
So it takes time to sort of align itself to the new reality. Fair enough, we are taking our time. Don't write us off. Don't consider electoral defeats as a defeat of ideology.
Okay, I write no one off.
Don't pin it on one individual.
Okay,
the Congress party is a thought. It's not an individual.
Okay,
Rahul Gandhi represents that thought, and he represents it beautifully. Therefore, the thought will never die.
Okay, the question is whether the party which you claim represents a thought now represents a family. That's the contentious issue, Mr. Khera. But
no, that family represents the thought. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Whether it's the Gandhi family, whether it's me, all of us represent that thought.
Yes.
I don't know what is the problem. Now, Sudhanshu ji says कि Congress president तो है नहीं Rahul Gandhi, फिर भी घूम रहे हैं. No, that's a compliment which I waited for him to. Yes, you're right. He is not a Congress president. Okay. He doesn't have to do what he's doing. Yet he's doing it. Why? Ask yourself.
Mr. Khera, you
क्यों लड़ रहे हो Twitter पर भी हर platform पर इस ideology
Mr. Khera, at the end of the day, politics is decided whether you like it or not on whether you win elections. You can fight, you can claim you're fighting an ideological fight. 192 seats in 2019 Lok Sabha. Congress versus BJP, 170 seats, BJP won. Average margin of victory was between 15 to 20%. That's just a point. Just a minute, sir. I'm just giving a statistical data point. Elections do matter.
I'd also like to counter it, right?
Yeah, I'll let you counter in a moment, but let Yogendra Yadav, who's also a cephalogist, respond. Yogendra ji, I'm putting up two maps. This is India 2010. UPA led in 14 states or was in power in 14 states, BJP in 9. 10 years later, look at how the situation has changed. Now it is the NDA which is in NDA in 18 states and UPA in 6. Has something dramatically changed in the last decade, or has this been building up, dare I say, since the mid-1980s, since the Indira Rajiv era?
Rajdeep, you don't need maps, you don't need statistics to see something is wrong with the Congress. I must say, incidentally, that defending Congress today is one of the most difficult tasks, and all credit to Pawan Khera for his passionate defense. Somehow, in everything that he said, very passionately and eloquently, the word ancient stayed with me. Ancient party. That comes up again and again, so much of it. I'm sure he didn't mean it that way. Look, there's part of what is wrong with Congress and what needs to be done is strictly Congress's internal affair. And what Mr. Kapil Sibal did or did not do in Old Delhi is again between Mr. Kapil Sibal and Pawan Khera. But there's one part of it which is and ought to be of national interest, not merely because every country deserves a principal national opposition, but above all because today our republic is being dismantled. The very idea of India is under challenge like never before in the history of this country. And this is where Congress, willy-nilly, whether it wants it or not, it carries that historical responsibility.
But people are, just a minute, Yogendra Yadav, people though are embracing, well, you're saying the idea of India, people seem to be embracing the new idea of India, which is not a Congress idea.
Yeah, which is not merely against the idea of Congress's India, which that can go to hell, but which is against the founding principles of India, which is against the idea of India implicit in the Constitution of India. And this is where Congress carries a responsibility. To my mind, the historic task of a part of Congress or a party like Congress today is to come to the defense of Indian Constitution, come to the defense of the values of the Indian freedom struggle, which was carried in the name of the Congress party. And this is what concerns me, not Mr. Kapil Sibal, not Chandni Chowk, but this heart of the republic, the threat, which Congress is unable to defend today. It is easy to say something is wrong. Of course it is wrong. Mr. Kapil Sibal is quite right to say everyone can see the problem. But I'm not sure what he means when he says everyone knows the solution. Because by saying that the solution lies in change of leadership, I think we insufficiently understand what is wrong. Because the problem really is, and Pawan Khera again is right, every big party reinvents itself in every new generation. But the last instance of reinvention that he could cite was 1991. Whether I approve of it or not doesn't matter. But that's 3 decades ago. For this India of today, no one has a new vision. No one has a language that resonates with the new generation. And this is a problem not merely of the Congress, but of the entire oppositional space. Congress's problems are more visible, ought to be more visible. But do remember, the problem is not merely of one person, one leader, or one party. The entire opposition is today clueless about giving a new vision of India that can compete with the BJP's vision.
We will come to that about what therefore is the challenge for the opposition. But Javed Ansari, as someone who's tracked the Congress, the party claims that they are now holding elections for key posts, that they will have a new president by January. But is the problem only of leadership? Is there a larger crisis of organization? Here is a party in Bihar which was doing seat sharing at the last moment. The screening committees were being put in place only 10 days before the elections. There were allegations even of tickets being auctioned off. This is a party which seems to lack the organizational machinery, particularly when on the other side is the BJP. Is the problem with the organization, with the leadership, with both?
Well, the problem is much deeper, and those who believe that merely changing A and replacing it with B or C have a very superficial understanding of politics and also of what ails the Congress party. Assuming, for argument's sake, that you replace Mr. Sonia Gandhi or Rahul Gandhi with Mr. Kapil Sibal or with any of the other signatories or any other leader, leave alone signatories, any other leader. If congressmen or others believe that these problems will simply vanish, that's not going to happen. You can change the entire working committee, lock, stock and barrel, those problems will not go away. So it's not just about individuals. It's also that Congress doesn't have leadership. I do not know at this point of time, having covered the Congress for close to 3 decades, what the present day Congress stands for, because sometimes they are a bit of this and they are a bit of that. Organizationally, they are moribund. This has been a creature. Congress had become towards the end a creature of government. They used to function They totally neglected their organization, and they used the loaves of office that they could dole out favors and patronages to keep the show going. And now that they are not in government, this whole thing has coming down.
That's an important point you're making. That's an important point you're making, Javed Ansari. Pawan Kheda, the sense is the Congress can't function as an oppositional party. The BJP is a very good opposition because the BJP likes the, it's ideologically driven. The Congress is driven by the ideology of power, the pursuit of power. You say Rahul Gandhi is the one fighting an ideological fight, but around him and across the party, the fight seems to be for power. And without power, what are congressmen doing? Shifting sides and joining the BJP. We saw it with Jyotiraditya Scindia in Madhya Pradesh. We are seeing it with several leaders across the country. MLAs, MPs are jumping ship. And you've got an incommunicative leadership. I am told by congressmen they can't even get an audience with the Gandhi family.
The time-tested notion, Rajdeep, you didn't complete your sentence. The time-tested notion is that, well, the BJP is very good in opposition and the Congress is definitely very good in governance. And you can see the disaster that BJP is in governance.
No, I said the Congress struggles as an oppositional party because power is the only glue that binds you.
I just completed your sentence because that's the time-tested notion across. Anyway, if you're talking about cadre building, Javed ji is talking about perhaps cadre building. Well, the Congress was never a cadre-based party. It always did better in struggle around an issue, around several issues, whether it was poverty alleviation, whether it was some vision.
Tell me the last popular agitation. Tell me the last. No, I want. Tell me the last agitation, public agitation that the Congress has spearheaded. Please tell me. 6 years. You've been in opposition for 6 years. Tell me one public agitation you've taken up on a sustained basis.
I've heard your question, Rajdeep. About 20 days ago, the farmers' agitation in 3 states where the farmers are very agitated. If you want more details, Notbandi. If you want more details, Alok Verma episode of the CBI. If you want more details, Hathras in Uttar Pradesh about a month ago. Tell me, I can give you a list of agitations. Every year, every month, every 6 months. So don't give me this. I know what my party does on the roads. Whether it gets covered by Rajdeep Sardesai or not is not my headache. It's Rajdeep Sardesai and his conscience. We are fighting at every level and we are fighting with absolute conviction, not just to win the ideological battle. Mind you, we also realize that elections are important to win. We will win the elections also. We are aligning ourselves with the new generation, with the new media, with the new communication. Fair enough, we take some time. Doesn't mean that we are lost or we are conceding defeat. Not at all. India will not be failed by the Congress
How
party.
will you respond to the primary argument BJP makes, Kamdar versus Namdar? That is what has stuck. Whether you like it or not, Mr. Modi's primary argument is Kamdar versus Namdar. For him, Rahul Gandhi is the perfect opponent. As long as he has Rahul Gandhi on the other side, he can play the Kamdar versus Namdar narrative. And we'll have election after election where you're on the defensive.
Rajdeep ji,
yes.
A man who's known to only enrich 8 or 10 of his friends is no longer Kamdar. I'm sorry, he is India's biggest Damdar. अब वो दामदार की लड़ाई आप किससे करवाना चाहते हैं, आप करवा दीजिए, हारेगा दामदार. तो ये कामदार, नामदार ये सब नहीं है. अब हिंदुस्तान का प्रधानमंत्री दामदार है. ये मत भूलिएगा.
That's how you perceive it. I don't know how the public perceives it.
That's how India is.
Okay, that's how you believe India perceives it. But
beginning to perceive it.
Sudhanshu Trivedi, the belief is that the BJP also is not ensuring a level playing field. Media आपकी है, ये कहा जाता है धन आपका है, आपके पास आप MLAs को switch कर सकते हैं पैसा देके. Media जो large section of media is seen to be completely with the government. How do you then have a level playing field? आपने बिल्कुल invisibilize कर दिया है. You can run campaigns against your opponents, often based on fake news. This is the charge made against the BJP. You are not playing a fair game. You are completely monopolizing institutions to crush the opposition.
Rajdeep, today is the era of internet and anybody can go and check in all the media sections. Agar sabse zyada abhadra shabd, the most dastardly words were used openly on media platform for any leader in the entire 72 years of history, it is Narendra Modi.
Last 6 years. Last 6 years, you have controlled the entire the institutional mechanism. It's no longer a level playing field.
I am talking about last 6 years. Tu chai bech, lahu purush, boti boti kaat denge, यहाँ आके देखो वगैरह वगैरह, so many things, and nothing happened, no action we have allowed in any spirit. But as far as Mr. Paman Kheda ji is concerned, I would just like to say that how good Congress was in governance, the people of the India has taught the lesson. And now, how good you are in opposition, your leadership is teaching lesson to the people of India. So it is proven neither good in government nor good in opposition. Now coming to that point, which he has said about the ideological and the idea of India, which Yogendra Yadav ji has said. Yogendra Yadav ji was correct that it has never happened before. Like in 1947, India was having 564 princely states, and there was a democratic election. It never happened. It transformed the country. And again we came in 1975, emergency. It never happened. And the JP movement transformed the country. In 1991, the new economic policy came. It transformed the country. It never happened. In the same manner, a new dawn is coming in India's offing. So that's why you are watching that there is a new change. And if you are saying that idea of India was correct, in which the Muslim personal law board was there, in which the Supreme Court decision has to be turned down by the Parliament of India, and if the Prime Minister of India says that the Muslims should have first right over the natural resources of India, and if those who are killing the car sevaks are get reprieved from Congress, and it is said that Ram never exists, if that idea of India was a very soothing song of secularism, so my dear sir, this idea of India is now being rejected by the new generation, and the real idea of India is coming, which is self-confident, which is not having anything guilty about their own culture. They are having the confidence which the Congress was having pre-election, pre-independence. They were having the elements like
in a way,
Rajendra Prasad, K.M. Munshi, Purushottam Das Tandon, but unfortunately they lost that lineage, and we are now the flag bearer of that original idea of India.
Yogendra Yadav, is this battle, and we are referring it to at the moment using Bihar as a news peg, an election where the margin between number one alliance and number two was just 12,000 votes. Let's be very clear. Are we saying these elections are being fought about the idea of India, or are they being fought on extremely local issues? And therefore, as you see increasingly in India, the disjunction between national elections that are presidential and local elections fought on local issues. Are we being premature, therefore, in writing off political parties? Is there an obsession with Narendra Modi that defines, in a way, the politics of this country? Should we be a little bit more cautious before making major pronouncements at this moment about the idea of India being threatened?
Rajdeep, we cannot write any political party off. We can be premature in that. But in saying that there is a challenge to the idea of India, how can you possibly doubt that, yes, Mr. Sudhanshu Trivedi's party can have a very different idea of India? All I would wish to say is that this is not the idea of India that our freedom struggle had. This is not the idea of India which is inscribed in our constitution. That idea is definitely under threat. Yes, Bihar election was fought on specific local issues. But do remember that Bihar is one state which is more affected by migrant labor plight than any other state. Remember, Bihar sacrificed more martyrs, more soldiers at the China border than other states. Remember that Bihar has had very poor handling of COVID. And if in spite of that, these do not become election issues of a decisive variety, then the opposition has something to answer. And the party which performed most poorly within the opposition will have to answer that, Rajdeep. Mr. Sudhanshu Trivedi rightly pointed out that we live in the age of internet and one can check everything. So one can check, for example, the fact that India is a country which had the most strict lockdown in the world and has seen the worst economic performance in the world. We can check the fact, for example, that the COVID crisis has been very poorly handled, that China has managed to occupy about 1,000 kilometers of Indian territory during this period. And then comes an election. And the opposition fails to convert all this into an issue, not merely because it was a state election, but because the opposition lacks credibility to raise these issues. These things are not going to go. There is incipient, there is beginning of unease with this government. There is beginning of disappointment. There is beginning of even, I would say, disillusionment with Narendra Modi. The problem is that the opposition and specifically the Congress has simply no way of connecting to that. There is an unease. Congress and other parties simply sit in the nice belief that one day people will get so unhappy with the BJP that they would kick us back into power. That is never going to happen. You need to present people with alternative vision. That has to be distilled into a communication, a message, and you need a messenger. At the moment, Congress does not have a vision, does not have a message, does not have a messenger.
Okay.
This cannot work out.
I think all I can say is touche to that point. Congress does not, in your view, have a vision, does not have a message, does not have a messenger. I know that Pawan Kheda would be dying to sort of respond to that, but we've run completely out of time. This needs a longer debate on the crisis of the Congress.
The Congress party doesn't get a chance to rebut any of this. It's not a very fair thing to do. So I hope you have another debate soon on the Congress party. I would be very happy to respond to Yogen ji and also to my friend Sudhanshu.
Right.
Because I'm not sure whether Godse की भक्ति न्यू इंडिया पसंद करता है, भारतीय जनता पार्टी जरूर पसंद करती होगी। मैं नहीं मानता नोटबंदी को लोगों ने स्वीकार किया क्योंकि आप चुनाव जीत गए। आप कहेंगे नोटबंदी भी स्वीकार हो गई, आप कहेंगे कोविड मिसमैनेजमेंट भी स्वीकार हो गई, तो फिर 70 साल की रिटर्न बताना बंद कर दीजिए। 70 साल में हमने सब कुछ अच्छा ही किया होगा जो बार-बार 60 साल हमें जिताया गया।
चलो, we leave it there. As I said, we need much more time to debate a grand old party and its state of affairs. We'll see where the Congress goes from here. I appreciate all my guests joining me on my top talking point this evening. Welcome back to the latest on the COVID-19 update, where the good news or the positive development in the fight against coronavirus is coming from the United States today. Pharma giant Moderna has stated that its vaccine has proven to be 94.5% effective in preliminary data from the company's still ongoing study of 30,000 volunteers. The vaccine's efficacy rate is based on the results of 95 cases, of which 90 cases claims Moderna have proved to be successful by the NIH-appointed Data Safety Monitoring Board. 30,000 people have enrolled for Moderna's vaccine trials called COVE study. Moderna's results come exactly a week after Pfizer announced that its vaccine proved to be 90% effective in the trials.
It's a really important milestone in the fight against the pandemic because it demonstrates that our vaccine, mRNA-1273, is able to prevent COVID-19 disease, including severe disease in people who've received it. It's really just a milestone, though. We have a lot of work ahead of us. Knowing the vaccine is going to be effective is great news, but we still need to complete the regulatory process, which involves completing the study and generating more data, even some follow-up and safety data. And then, of course, we need to get busy manufacturing.
And the vaccine couldn't come a moment too soon at a time when the national capital is witnessing a huge surge in its daily coronavirus cases. Delhi, in fact, is now the city with the highest daily rates of coronavirus cases in the world. India Today's Ashutosh did a reality check. Here's his report.
It is Delhi's biggest battle. A massive spike in COVID cases and rapidly dwindling hospital beds. No city, not even in the United States, is seeing the growth in COVID cases that the national capital is seeing. Since November beginning, Delhi's COVID numbers are among the 10 worst globally. Delhi's current average daily new cases dwarf even cities like New York and Sao Paulo in Brazil. Seeing the dire situation on the ground, the centre has joined forces with the Delhi government. Paramilitary medical staff are being airlifted to the capital to counter shortage of doctors in Delhi. The Delhi government remains hopeful of containing the COVID crisis.
फर्स्ट वेव जून में आई थी, सेकेंड वेव सितंबर में आई थी और थर्ड वेव ये जो नवंबर में चल रही है, इसका पीक तो जा चुका है. आज मैं कह सकता हूं, डेफिनेटली आपसे कह सकता हूं कि डेफिनेटली वेव का जो पीक था, पीक इज गॉन. अब धीरे धीरे ये कम आएगी.
Of particular concern is availability of ventilators. Of the 1,342 ICU beds with ventilators, only 165 were available in the evening, according to the Delhi government's COVID beds dashboard. Private hospitals are the most in demand. Delhi's Sir Ganga Ram Hospital has no ICU beds available. Same is the situation at top private hospitals like Indraprastha Apollo and Max. Even the Loknayak Jayaprakash Narayan Hospital The biggest COVID facility in Delhi has 8 ventilators left, though beds are available.
During the meeting with the state and centre at MHA headed by the Union Home Minister Amit Shah, the centre has assured to provide ICU beds, 700 ICU beds fully equipped. Looking at the number which are in a surge in the capital for last few days, there will be more need of ICU beds. But at the moment, where the government says it has available of beds and wards around 7,900 in its own stock, private hospitals have wards, but there is lack of ICU.
The centre is now rushing to add 750 ICU beds to capital's existing capacity. Much of it will go to the 10,000-bed COVID centre. With Ashutosh, Bureau Report, India Today.
Joining me now is Dr. Rakesh Verma. He's additional he's with the Delhi Additional Director General Health Services, Ministry of Health. Joins me. Appreciate your joining us, Mr. Verma. Dr. Verma, I want to ask you the big question that's troubling many people. Is it really, as is being suggested by the Health Minister, that the wave has peaked and now we will see a decline? Is that what is being suggested? Because the numbers are still very, very high in Delhi and indeed across North India. Is this going to stay with us through the winter?
Mr. Rajdeep, you must understand I am nobody to question the authority of Honorable Health Minister of Delhi State. I am a physician and I can say about the data, but I am nobody to challenge or question
what does your data suggest?
Health Minister of Delhi State.
What does your data suggest?
See, as per data, as your channel itself has shown, that we are facing after 26th of October, high surge of daily COVID cases in Delhi city, or because Delhi has been the NCR, which patients come not only from Delhi, local domiciles, but patients from neighboring states, neighboring districts. They keep on flowing to Delhi city, and Delhi has got a lot of flowing population, which population comes in the morning for the work, then go back to their states or their hometowns in the evening. So it is that population which is also giving trouble. And as you are aware, we are passing through a very festive phase, and in festival phase, a lot of people gave up the social precaution, social distancing, use of mask, did not clean their hands thoroughly and properly, and came in very close contact with strangers or persons whom they never knew, like a shopkeeper. In a shop, there were 20 people standing. Your channel also showed it. That in a shop, a small 10 by 20 shop, there were 30 people crowded for buying for some commodity. They do not know the next person, next lady, next boy, next person could be having COVID.
So you're saying...
And they got transmission from that.
So you're saying...
expected lines.
No, but are you not worried that, you know, if this continues, does Delhi have the infrastructure, the ventilators, the ICU beds to cope up with the situation? Yesterday, the Home Minister had to call, the Union Home Minister had to call an emergency meeting to ensure that adequate facilities are in place. Is Delhi prepared for this sudden spike?
Exactly. Sardesai Sahab, you see that how much government is concerned from the highest level, Honorable Prime Minister. The Health Minister itself on a vacation day took a huge meeting, called for all the senior people who are involved and tried to reconsider how can they improvise the situation. And they are taking all the effort at war footing. I must remind you that in the Health Ministry, there is a war room in the office of Honorable Health Minister, which is operational almost 24 hours a day for last 8 months. And only because of that, and Honorable Health Secretary and Health Minister are putting all their attention to how to prevent this COVID infection. If somebody has got the COVID infection, how to treat it, how to bring the best medicines, how to bring the best beds. And Honorable Supreme Court is also monitoring it. And during June also, there was a huge survey conducted in Delhi, and you saw the results. But now this surge is because of we are lacking. We as a citizen of the city are not doing the social obedience. In that manner, we are not maintaining social distance. We are not using mask. When we are going, we think that mask is a taboo. There is nothing like taboo. If Honorable Prime Minister of the country is wearing the mask, if Honorable Home Minister is wearing the mask, Health Minister Sahab is wearing a mask, why I and you cannot wear the mask? Then we are going out of the house, out of the home, just like that. We're having fun or chilling out.
So you're
that
saying...
is causing the biggest problem. You must remember, prevention is the treatment of COVID.
Okay, I think that's those are salutary words.
Today's vaccine is social distancing.
Okay, those are salutary words. I hope they are being listened to by our viewers out there. And what you seem to be suggesting is that the Delhi government is prepared for this emergency situation and there is all precautions are being taken. We'll wait and see in the weeks ahead. Thanks very much, Dr. Verma, for joining me here on the news today. Thank you. Let me turn from there to our image of the day, and it's a happier image because guess what? Winter is here early. The hilly regions across the northern Himalayan range have received the season's first snowfall. Across Uttarakhand, Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, the snowfall is here and perhaps signaling a decline in night temperatures across North India. That's our image of the day. Just a reminder, 10 p.m. tonight, special on Soumitra Chatterjee, Sharmila Tagore and Aparna Sen join me in a rare special. That's coming up on the news today, on the News Unpacked. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.